at first, wow, we're seeing return on ad spend like through the ceiling. But then the question that came up was like, hold on a second. If we were to stop advertising, would we generate those installs and that revenue according?
How can you make sure each ad dollar you spend is incremental? Hello and welcome to Growth Masterminds, the podcast for growth marketers. My name is John Koetsier. No one, of course, wants to waste ad dollars. Everybody worries that if they do a new campaign with new ad networks and partners, they might just be hitting the same audiences all over again and not actually boosting their results. Key to solving for that is incrementality testing, but how do you do it? Today, we're chatting with the CEO of Zedge. Their core app has been installed over 600 million times, has almost 15 million reviews, and a very high star rating with more than 25 million active users. His name is Jonathan Reich. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thanks so much, John. Great to be here.
Super pumped to have you. Thank you for joining us. Before we jump into incrementality, we're going to talk about all that stuff, what it is, how it works, how you test for it, how you see it, any of the risks, pitfalls, mistakes, all that stuff. Before we jump into that, tell us your story. Zedge is a pretty cool story. It's a massive app. You've built something pretty impressive there. How'd you come up with it? Tell us about it.
Sure. So the founders of the company had wanted to put ringtones on their phone. This is pre-smartphone and everything like that. And they realized, what am I paying the telephone company, $10 a pop to get a ringtone on my handset? And they launched the website. And suddenly people were just pounding that content, eyeballs beyond belief. And then as smartphones came into the forefront, the company actually did a contrarian move and launched on Android first. Mm-hmm. The reason for that is that mobile phone personalization, which is the space in which the company had evolved, was really core to the operating system. Mm-hmm. And with that, it was ringtones and wallpapers and soon to be video wallpapers and app icons and notification sounds, all the way through and including today, a whole suite of AI creation tools. Cool. So really what we do is we meet a very core need for users. People want to personalize their phone. We're a marketplace which allows them to do that either with user-generated content or with premium content or with content that they can actually go out and create on their own.
Very cool. And it's a total flashback for anybody who is, let's say, young here, when phones were new. It was a big business to get ringtones, and you would buy them from your cell phone company, from your carrier. And that was a big business for carriers. And what was it, 99 cents a pop? Was it more than that? I don't even really recall.
All over the place. And I think that one of the reasons why we made it, we survived. And as you said, actually we're closer to around 750 million cumulative installs at this time. Are across both Android and iOS. But the reason why I think we made it was because a lot of the other players were, let's say, a little sketchy in terms of trying to sew after the bucks without really building a product that was putting the customer first. And what we opted to do was build a customer-facing product that really met the needs of our customer. And then with that, over time, began to monetize with a portfolio of monetization tools, whether it be advertising, whether it be in-app purchases, whether it be rewarded video, whether it be subscription. So that whole portfolio is something that we spend a lot of time on optimizing. And then, from a marketing perspective, we are in like this very unique category. We're like what I call the 0.001%. There's such strong organic demand for our product. And I believe that is a function of what customers want to do with their phone and us being there with a great product. And, the rest is like a really good feeling, like, having hot chocolate on a winter morning.
Exactly. Love it. It is interesting that you bring up. I mean, there's not many companies that survive massive shifts in their ecosystem, right? I mean, horseless carriage companies that survive when, or sorry, horse-driven carriage companies that survive in the horseless carriage space, and you did that. That's impressive. You talked about a lot about organic growth, and there's got to be a ton of that. What was your marketing strategy? What did you do? You must have done some paid as well, obviously, because we're going to talk about incrementality.
Sure. So up until around 3 years ago, we were not investing in paid user acquisition. Up until around 3 years ago, we were really focused on organic ASO, SEO, and things of that sort. And the reason behind that was that the return on ad spend was just not there. Around 70% of our revenue stream comes from advertising. And with the rise in CPMs, as well as the advancement of more targeted UA, we began to dabble in it. And over time, we have seen our spend grow considerably. We still have a lot of organic installs, but we also are doing that in conjunction with paid UA.
That is
And that's,
always
by the way, why incrementality for us is really a much different animal than it is for many other apps, because we have so many organic installs.
that's the magic, and that's super interesting. That's something that's always super interesting for me, is because, okay, you have this organic, that's great. You add some paid. Are you just paying for what you would have gotten ordinarily? Or are you actually fueling more organic because there's more interest, more excitement, more communication? The app stores see that something's happening here, all those sorts of things. Those are very difficult and challenging to untangle, especially, dare I say it, on Apple search ads, where, some people feel like they need to own their keywords, right? And then people tap on the first result, which is the ad, and they would have gotten it anyways. They would have gotten your install anyways. So this is really, really, really challenging. Let's dive in. Maybe from the top, how do you see incrementality?
In our case, we look at incrementality as being a really, really important component of how do we spend our dollars. And to your point, we're dominant in Google Play. And what we began to notice as we were building out our marketing team, we didn't have a marketing team 3 years ago, was that you'd go into Google Play and you would see a paid ad for Zedge, and immediately below it, you'd see the organic search result. Or just how Google Play was prioritizing. And at first, wow, we're seeing return on ad spend like through the ceiling. But then the question that came up was like, hold on a second. If we were to stop advertising, would we generate those installs and that revenue according? And that's where we really began to take a step back and figure out, how do we crack this nut? And how do we do so in a fashion where we know if we're investing, we're seeing true return on ad spend? And that has been an iterative process, and something that has proven to be exceptionally valuable for us.
So the really interesting thing here is that you've got some spaces, some industries, some apps that are so ridiculously profitable that you really don't care at some level. You're going to surround sound marketing people. You're going to put your ads out there, and you're going to have your organic there. And you don't really care if you kind of got some overlap there, even 50% overlap or something, because you're making so much on the back end. Not the case for most apps, and not the case for you, because you're mostly ad supported. So you're doing an arbitrage here, and you need to win the arbitrage. What did you start doing when you saw, hey, our ad is there on Google Play and there's our organic listing? What did you start doing, and what did you learn?
Well, the very first thing that I started to do was I said, I got to pray, because like, oh my God, I'm not spending our month properly. So after that, what we did as a team was we sat down and said, listen, we need a set of parallel tracks here. First of all, let's take a market, stop advertising in that market. And in terms of incrementality, that's great. it also has a disadvantage because you're not in the market, and that advertising is something that benefits both your paid and your organic results. But we began to take a look at some smaller markets to see what would happen if we just pulled the plug. And that helped us in terms of setting standard. And then we began to reach out to the major platforms where we were spending ad dollars, and we began to engage with them. And initially, some of them were a little bit, wait, that not can't be. But over time, what we've seen is incrementality is something which actually can be exceptionally beneficial to the various UA platforms, because if they can indeed demonstrate that they are generating value for you, they're going to get more dollars out of it. And then the final piece is we've obviously invested in data science. We have a data science team, and they help us in terms of analyzing our results. More recently, we partnered and brought on, no pun intended, but we started to work with Incremental, Mower Cypress company to help us in terms of giving us adjacent information that can help us better optimize our ad spend.
Okay. Interesting. And so there's a couple different things that people do, right? People can, like you did, just pause some paid in some markets or some areas and see what happens. People can also induce significant changes in spend on different platforms and then see what the results of that are. Maybe you take one down 50%, you raise another one 50% another time, and you see what the results are. That's all interesting. I want to ask you what you did and what that looked like, but I have to ask the burning question first of all. On Google Play, you were first paid and first organic. Was that good or was that bad?
It's a mixed bag because
not easy.
When you think about it, if you are first and second, someone's going to click on you.
Yep.
However, when you are paying for that and you're not, and you're stealing from your organic, that is bad.
Yeah.
So what we needed to do was we needed to see to it that we were managing that spend well.
Yes.
Really increasing the top of the funnel, if you will.
That's super interesting, right? There's neither a no or a yes here. It's it's more complex in that scenario. What did you do everywhere else? Did you induce some wild variations? Did you pause a bunch of things? What did your data science team do?
All of the above. And what we've done is we've tried things in different markets. Increase spend dramatically, decrease spend dramatically, measure the impact, and pull out of a market entirely, measure the impact. Sort of do a sine wave where you'll have big spend, small spend, big spend, small spend, and then measure what the impact is. So there are a whole set of different tests that we have undertaken over time in order to really test the limits. We've done so without breaking the bank.
Cool.
The notion of being able to segment based upon geography is really, really critical, because you can continue your normal activity, 90% of the markets, but you have that 10% test bed where you're able to get a lot more insight as to what the impact is. And if you see something that is dramatic, then you can say, you know what, let me try this against two other markets that are more substantial. Does it review? And what happens across different platforms? What if I reduce from platform A, put it onto platform B? Well, I'll see the individual results, but then I will also see what happens to my organic install base. So a lot of really different things that you have to keep your eyes on. And not get so caught up in the weeds where you lose sight of the forest. You're never going to have 100% efficiency, but you're trying to optimize.
Can you summarize a few of the learnings as you went through this process? I mean, did you find channels that were just non-incremental? You found some that were incremental. Did you find that those were that characteristic of those channels or those partners was across geos, or was it geo specific? Share some general learnings that you found.
Sure. We have found that there are certain, DSPs that just don't work for us. No
Mm-hmm.
matter how we test, no matter whether we scale up, scale down. Obviously, there's also an element of, advertising and making sure that you have the right messaging.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, that has been something which has been eye-opening to us. And then there's another piece of this, which is, what are you optimizing against? And we found that certain channels are much better at helping us in terms of growing the advertising base of our users versus the subscription base. And then there are other channels where the subscription base will benefit and the advertising will not see that benefit accordingly.
Huh. Interesting. I wonder if age is a function there, because often younger users will not pay, but they will watch ads. Older users will pay and watch fewer ads.
Yeah, we are trying to be mindful of that as well. So who is the platform optimized for? And then what are we seeing in that sort of age bracket?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And listen, it's to be expected. If you go to any platform today, they're using machine learning AI in order to get your product in front of a prospective user.
Mm-hmm.
If their model is not tweaked in the way which is best suited for your product, app, service, for everything,
Mm-hmm.
it's just not going to work.
Yeah. 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 Okay. With what you know today and what you're doing today, and of course, everything is in a state of progress, right? You're at a certain level today. You'll be ahead in 3 months. But as you are today, somebody comes to you and said, you know what? I feel like we need to test a new ad partner. What do you do? How do you do that in an incremental world?
So we will take a small test budget, dip our toe in the water, begin to take a look at the results. And then with the benefit of data science, as well as a platform like Incremental, we can get a directional indicator as to whether or not that's helping us or not.
Cool.
Then once we've validated that something is helping us, the question is, how fast do you press down on the accelerator? There is the law of diminishing returns. So there's always that. I'm not going to call it science. I'm going to call it more of an art in terms of, when do you stop pressing down on the acceleration? When do you cross that, point of diminishing returns? Or when, if you were to test another platform, could you potentially yield better results than eking out that extra, 5% return or, a different channel?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What does small mean? So you said your new partner, you're going to start with a small test budget. It obviously needs to be small, because you're not going to go hard and spend a whack load because you don't know if it works yet. So that makes sense. But it needs to be big enough so that if it is working, you'll see the impact. What does small look like in percentage terms?
We're talking, like thousands of dollars, single
Okay.
dollars, over a couple of week period. And then taking a look at the results.
Mm-hmm.
Is ROAS pointing in the right direction? What's happening with the rest of the portfolio? Do we see any sort of change with respect to organic installs or with respect to the quality of your installs? Obviously, certain platforms will bring better users that are generating more money for you.
Mm-hmm.
Multi-variable equation. If we begin to see, things are holding up, then we'll take it up and say, okay, let's spend not single digit, double digit thousands of dollars and, expand from there.
Love it. Love it. I also like that you said, hey, there's an art to this. I recently saw and actually wrote about the CEO of Supercell. Wrote a piece about, they've been around for 15 years now. Different space, obviously it's gaming, right? But it's still a mobile app. And he's saying it's more art than science. to get an app that is super successful. And there's so much science in what we do, right? In terms of the marketing, the data and everything like that. But there is an art to it too. And that's not just in the creative, it's also in the strategy and the timing and the waiting and all that stuff. It's super interesting. Okay. So somebody's coming, they're hearing this and thinking, okay, great. I want to try it. I want to do some of that. My boss has been bugging me for a while or whatever. Any pitfalls or risks that you can highlight for somebody?
Yeah. A pitfall is not having access to good data or analysis paralysis. And that's why I go back to the art of this. We're not talking about having perfection. We're talking about having optimization. And if you can feel comfortable that the numbers that you're looking at are directionally correct, then in my mind, that counts for a lot more than taking those numbers out to 5 decimal places.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, that's hard for some people, right? They want a definitive, lucky 8-ball answer. Go.
Listen, when it was last touch attribution, it was really simple, right? Like just boom. Hey, this guy made this install and you move on. Although we know that is also not accurate. That last touch was a maze. It was a pathway where there were many other influencers along with it. It's advertising, it's reach and frequency.
Yep.
But it was an easy way to just say it was Meta, or it was Google, or it was Iron Source, or whatever. But it existed then as well. No question about harder when the fidelity of the data is not there. But at the same point in time, you can still manage your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is overdetermined, right? Everything has multiple causes. Even when you got last click, there were a bunch of other clicks there. And then there were people who were fighting over last click, right? And sometimes gaming last click, and that's still happening today, obviously, right? So lots of challenges there. Cool. Let's end here. Somebody's going to try it. They're going for it. They heard the mistake or they heard the pitfall, the risk that you talked about. Are there any mistakes that you made as you went through this process that you said, hey, watch out for that. Watch out for this. Can somebody learn from your experience?
Yeah, I'd say in terms of mistakes, going back to what I said earlier, initially we're thinking about, we want to have precision. We want to have all of this data. And that was something which just was overkill. Number one. Number two is, when you start testing, you don't really know what the perfect formula is. So, going cold turkey, it gives you a precise answer, but it also slows your brain.
Yeah.
So being able to, over time, have a more nuanced approach, and also, and you touched upon this earlier, having the ability to be patient and take a look at trending data is, I think, something which requires mettle that when you start out with, you just think, hey, this is all digital. We can measure anything. We'll have answers instantaneously. And it ain't like that.
And it wasn't even before IDFA got scarce with ATT. We didn't think about it as much as we should have, but it wasn't.
Right. What's it saying? Like, you only appreciate something when you don't have it any longer, right?
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately true. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for this. I really do appreciate the time.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to speak to you today.